welcome to a very special edition of Mississippi Stories. I figured if you're going to do Mississippi Stories, you might as well get one of Mississippi's premier storytellers on with you. And I'm very happy to have a guy on who has interviewed me several times. Now I get to turn the tables on him and get to find out a little bit more about his life and his fascinating career here in Mississippi. You know him, of course, he's Walt Grayson. You see him on WJTV and on MPB as well on, of course, Mississippi Roads, which is probably, I think it's probably the most popular show on Mississippi Public Broadcasting. Definitely much more popular than Conversations. Oh, wait, that's my show. Never mind. But anyway, Walt, it is so nice to have you here today and talking to you. And I'm glad that we mastered technology today and have managed to talk to each other.
Yeah, I hope we've mastered it anyway. I've got a strong signal, and hey, can you hear me?
Yes, exactly. Now you sound great. You look great. We've got plenty of Wi-Fi. I think we're going to be good today.
Good deal.
So you started out, you were pretty young. I mean, okay, you grew up in the Delta. You grew up in Greenville.
Yeah, from Greenville.
And you got into radio pretty early in your life. What drew you to media?
I think it was all the way back to my childhood, really, because I'm an old guy. I remember not having a television. I remember when we sat around at night and watched the radio. I really don't. I mean, we had a radio in our living room, and I think I have two vivid memories, distinct memories of listening to that radio when I was a child. But there was this big old hulking piece of furniture type thing, Yeah. And it had a shortwave band on it. And when I got to fiddle with it, I could pick up Radio Moscow and all the stations that were still broadcasting back in those days. You could pick up the world on it. That was just fascinating to me that I could sit in my living room and play with the radio and pick up all these places from all over the world. I was just mesmerized by that. And so I think that's what drew me into broadcasting. And I had no idea that I wanted to do that as a career. I was just fascinated with it. And from that, got to tinkering with radios. I had a brother-in-law who was into electronics, and he drugged me and my older brother kicking and screaming into being interested in it. I remember one of the most boring things he wanted to do was to show us how to build a one-tube radio. Now I thrive on that now. When I don't have anything else to do, I go out in the garage and build a radio. So I came into it actually from the technical aspect. And then when, of course, rock and roll hit, how old was I? I was first grade maybe or something when Elvis came out, and which changed the world, which changed everything, because now all of a sudden this radio meant rock and roll, which in the back of my mind also meant if I was a disc jockey, I might be able to get dates. So, I became interested in it that way, because it's just this fascinating invisible medium that connects you to the whole world, that there's somebody on the other end of it out there that's watching you or listening to you, that you can communicate with. And it's just fun. And on top of that, it sure beats working for a living. So,
yeah, I mean, you started in high school, didn't you?
I did. I started my junior year of high school, which makes me having been in the business for about 55 years now.
55 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and folks, a lot of people need to understand, you started out in radio, which, I love radio just because you literally are painting pictures with your words, and you can, tweak imagination and everything else. And just seeing how good you are on television now, I think that background in radio really helped you, didn't it?
Well, what I like about radio, there are no scripts, there are no teleprompters. Everything had to be ad-libbed.
Yeah.
And of course, by radio 55 years ago, AM radio was it. That people kind of watched television at night in Greenville. Until they put the cable system in, we couldn't really watch television. It was just radio with a snowy nightlight on it, because the closest stations to us were Memphis and Monroe, and they didn't come in very well.
Yeah.
But radio was really the medium to go to. And what kids nowadays get, well, of course, now kids nowadays, I don't think they listen to FM. They got this little phone that they go around with.
Everything's right here.
Yeah, there you go. There's your radio. There's everything, and your television, for that matter. But I tell them that not only was I an AM radio, it was still black and white. But radio was fun, and it was something that a high school kid in Greenville, Mississippi, could get into. And when I got my first job in radio, I thought they wanted someone with a nice voice who could, speak eloquently and all that. I don't even know that English was required. They wanted somebody to come down and sign that sucker on Sunday morning so the boss's brother wouldn't have to.
Well, I mean, Walt, I loved it. We worked on a Christmas project together for WJTV over last Christmas, which was so much fun. I mean, you had this beautiful story, and I got to illustrate it, and our friend Opie Cooper turned it into just magic. It really was.
Yeah.
It was a great segment, and I love drawing. It was a story about you and your childhood going to visit relatives in the hills after you, of course, were in the Delta, and I got to envision you as a kid. And of course, you had white hair and you looked
Yes,
as you did now. It's like I had a hard time getting around. Did you have like the voice like when you were in high school that you've got now? Because you got one of the best TV radio voices around.
I don't know. So whatever I have now is what I had then.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So I'm just voice envy on my part. I'm sorry.
Listen, I worked with some people in radio that had some voices.
Oh yeah.
A fellow by the name of Charlie Stone from Greenville. I mean, when he spoke, it was like thunder.
Yeah.
Actually, he was the one person that got me out of Mississippi, because he went to work for a station in Omaha, Nebraska. And it was like in the top 20 rock and roll stations in the nation. And this is my claim to fame. Then I hope people don't really remember me there because I was awful. But he went to work there, and they had an opening, and he asked me if I wanted to come to Omaha, which at that time WLS in Chicago was hiring pretty much exclusively from this station in Omaha. And I was thinking, man, this is my ticket to the big time. This is WLS is what we listened to as kids at night down here. But anyway, Charlie he went to all the major markets. Me, I went to Omaha, decided, I'm not really sure I like this major market stuff. And I came back to Mississippi, and I've been very comfortable here since then. But all that to say that if I've got a voice, you should have heard some of the people I worked with, man.
You ended up coming to Jackson. You went to Mississippi College. What made you decide to go to Mississippi College?
Well, this was kind of I don't know if it was a conflict. It was, I was raised Southern Baptist. I tell people I was Southern Baptist ever since 9 months before I was born. So that's how long I've been going to church. Yeah. And, raised in a family that not only were they there when every time the doors were open, sometimes they would open the doors.
Yeah.
And you go through this period of time that, well, maybe, God wants me to do some kind of ministry. And so I explored that and went to Mississippi College and majored in Bible, and actually pastored a little church up in North Madison County. And I get this picture of Madison County, like a Renaissance and the city of Madison. Get that out of your mind. Right. This is, let me put it, is South Italic County. Is where this church was. Okay. I mean, it was country. Somebody told me one time that those people up there, they're all hunters. Says they only have 2 seasons, salt and pepper. And so we had a lot of meals. I'm not sure what it was. It was all good. I never asked. I could have eaten possum. I don't. But this was one thing I liked about it, other than the fact that it got ministry out of my system, because I realized pretty quickly on that this is not what I want to do. That I want to do broadcasting. That's if God called me to anything, it was broadcasting. But I really enjoyed meeting the people. And of course, I grew up in Greenville, and Greenville was considered itself to be the Athens of Mississippi. Not necessarily me, but the people who were the uppers there. Greenville was a little, just kind of the upper crust of Mississippi. Everything else was downhill from there. So to actually get out of the country and meet some good old country folks, and I stayed with them for 4 or 5 years up there, and got to know some really nice people in another part of Mississippi that I was totally unfamiliar with. But anyway, long story short, that's why I went to Mississippi College. I was going to pursue a career in ministry until I got into it long enough. And I credit my good preaching of getting me out of it, because I realized, this is not what God wants me to do. I talked to a minister one time, just on calling. I was at his house shooting some video for a family of singers, and they needed some video, and they were going to go to this minister's house and use his piano. So anyway, I talked to him a little bit about calling, and he opened my eyes to something. He said, well, first of all, I think calling is about 90% desire. That if you don't have a desire to do it, you shouldn't do it. And I had another minister told me that he knew that he was called to preach because even if he didn't have a church, he would have to go preach somewhere, even if it was for free out on the street corners. And he said, so anything you do for free, that's probably what you're called to. And in broadcasting, I know I would do it for free because I've done it for free many times. Exactly. So it also enjoyed Mississippi College. I got another exposure to the world that I wouldn't have gotten had I not gone there, really, be honest with you. And then just got a good college education out of it that I may have bypassed altogether had I not done that.
I was thinking about that in storytelling. And did you grow up in a family? I mean, were y'all storytellers by nature? I mean, because it's, there was a time when we'd sit on the front porch and we would discuss things and slow down. Now we're busy looking at our phones and doing whatever it is we do. But, there was just such a rich tradition of storytelling in Mississippi. Do you think that that's where you developed it from?
Oh, I'm sure a lot of it came from that, especially going to my grandmother's house in Fulton, because she didn't even have the television. The entire time maybe she did right toward the end of her life. Maybe my aunt and uncle bought a television, but they finally got a station up there. That's one thing. I mean, they were in a further fringe area in Fulton than we were in Greenville, and they had one radio in the living room, but it didn't work. Even though it didn't work, us kids were not allowed to touch it. The back of my hands are still red from trying to push a button on the thing. Yeah. By the way, I have that old radio now, and it works.
You got it fixed.
I fixed it.
You fixed it. Yeah.
That's my alter ego, is to be a radio technician and repair these old. I tell you what I enjoy about it. It's so different from anything that I do. Yeah. That if I really need to get away from stuff, I'll go drag out a radio and work on it. And I got a few around here to tinker with. But back to the storytelling, that's what they did. We'd go up there for the holiday. And that's the other thing. They had big family reunions. And so I got to meet all my cousins and aunts and uncles and all of this. And we'd pile in this one house and spend a weekend up there, holiday weekend, Thanksgiving or Christmas. And at night, after the supper dishes were done and put away, everybody would get in the living room. And nobody would say, okay, it's story time, start telling stories. They'd just start telling stories. And you'd have one ready to go. You'd want to throw it in. Somebody would change the subject. You just wanted to kill them. But yes, all that storytelling, I think a lot of it came from them because, you feel good when somebody's sitting around telling a story.
Yeah. And that's what sounds like my family. My family is that way too. You go to Thanksgiving and afterwards everybody'd sit around and digesting their food. And, we were a bunch of teachers, preachers, and car salesmen. So it was like everybody could stand up and tell a story, on that. Yeah. And it just, because I always ask that question to people, I remember asking Mac McAnally that, what is it about it's a chicken and egg question. Do we have just great stories or do we have great storytellers?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what he said too.
I even have a Mac McAnally story for you.
Sure.
He may have told you, but Mac McAnally did the theme song, for Mississippi Roads. Yeah. And in the process of doing this, gosh, that was 20 something years ago that he did this. He wrote it and recorded it. And we were somehow or another talking to him or talking about his early career when he was a kid.
Yeah.
He was very talented and was offered a gig playing at a juke joint. And the owner of the establishment came and told his parents, listen, I will protect your child. He won't get out with the riffraff. Nobody will bother him. And I'll make sure that he's taken care of. And so reluctantly, his parents let him go play in this bar somewhere. And then he got back home and his mother asked him, so son, were the people okay? He said, well, yeah, mom's the same people we go to church with on Sunday.
Yeah, he told me, he said the only thing they had to eat at those places were the little colored eggs that you see in the jars. And he said, surprised it didn't save 20 years off his life, sitting there eating that. Mac's great. I mean, he really, I'm a huge fan. That's neat. How did you end up getting him to do the theme for Mississippi Roads?
Well, actually, I came in after all that was done. Mississippi Roads had been on, I think, probably from the time that they started public broadcasting.
Yeah.
Ran it for about 5 years. And then all of a sudden in a meeting one day, they said, well, I think we're going to drop Mississippi Roads. And nobody objected to it. And I'm thinking, you fools, right. Why did you drop it? So they dropped the thing for maybe 10 years. And then around the year 2000 decided, hey, we're going to pick it back up. And by the time they contacted me and asked me if I wanted to be the host of it, if I would agree to do that, they had the whole thing laid out. They had the introduction already animated, and Mike McAnally with his theme song already recorded. So I was the next drop-in. They dropped me in to host the show then.
Yeah.
So I came in after the fact, but and we had a great crew. But it's not that we don't have a great crew now. It's just I think attrition and the pandemic and everybody's down in staff right now. But we were rocking and rolling when we first started doing that. I mean, we had a crew of people. We would rent audio people. You know, that's unheard of. You work out there. Try going to the boss and saying, "Hey, I want to hire a crew outside to come follow me around and see how far you get."
Yeah, when I first, the same way with conversations, it's been around since the beginning of public broadcasting, and I love looking at the really old episodes on the really 70s looking sets and seeing people with their big hair and interviewing, just people that have. So it's really cool to look at the old episodes, and then I took it over, and we used to go out on the road some, and travel. We went to Natchez, and we went down to Laurel and so forth, but we haven't done anything since the pandemic, and I think we're about to start back. So that would be nice. But yeah, the world has changed a lot since the pandemic. But when did you start doing Mississippi Roads? I was trying to remember.
It was about 2000,
Okay.
1999 or 2000, somewhere in there. That's when they revived it.
Yeah.
And I had tried to go back and tie it to some specific date, but the only thing that's about 20 or so years now.
Yeah, you'd made the switch from radio to television around 1984, I think it was.
84, yeah. I had been working at WSLI radio, and Channel 12 is just right across the driveway from, or was then anyway. The Channel 12's in one building, then there was a driveway, then WSLI radio. And for the first time since I guess the station went on the air, they were looking for a weather person because Bob Neblett, was Channel 12's Woody, had retired, and they replaced him with Glenn Deere, who had been there forever. Mm-hmm. And then Joanne Haynes, the weekend weather girl, left, and they had no replacement for her. The other hobby that I had growing up was weather, because my dad worked out on the road all the time, and Greenville finally did get a cable TV system. And we could pick up stations from everywhere. We had to get them from everywhere because at that time, Channel 6 in Greenwood had not come on the air yet. So our ABC affiliate was Channel 7 in Little Rock.
Wow.
And we get Channel 3 in Jackson was our NBC affiliate, and then Channel 12 in Jackson was our CBS affiliate. Mm-hmm. And they all had weather on at different times. Let's see, who was it? It was Channel, one of them, I think Channel 12 started with weather. And then Channel 7 in Little Rock had weather in the middle of their newscast. And then Channel 3, Woody wrapped up the newscast at Channel 3 with weather. And my dad, since he was out on the road all the time, didn't really care about the news. He wanted to see the weather. And so we watched 3 weathercasts tonight. We got Bob Neblett, we got whoever was on at Channel 7 in Little Rock, and then we got Woody. And so from that, I created an interest in it. And Daddy would take these things and add the 3 together, divide them by 3, and come up with, an average of what they all said. So that's one of the other things that had I not gone into radio, I always thought that, hey, I'd like to do weather. Well, Channel 12 needed a weekend weather person, and I was right across the driveway. I went over and applied for the job, and it was kind of like my first radio job. You don't have to know anything about weather. You just need to be down here so the real weatherman won't have to be here on the weekends. So I got some experience doing that. A few years later, the Channel 12 was sold. The radio station was sold. A couple of guys from Texas bought it. Their idea of getting your attention at a staff meeting was to come through and fire a couple of people, and then everybody else set up real, straight and paid attention. Well, it finally, after about a year and a half, it got to be my morning partner's turn to get fired. The only job available at that time was Channel 3 was looking for a weatherman. I went over and talked to Bert Case, and stood out in front, of the screen. And since I had a little experience doing that, faked my way through it. And I got this job so Woody wouldn't have to come back and do the 10 o'clock weather at night. See, it's all these pieces. It's not that I'm so good, it's nobody else wanted to do it. So, but, and my thinking then was actually that I would stay with that weather job at Channel 3 long enough to find me another radio job. And God was very fortunate to me that he let me stay there all of those years, because radio changed entirely after that. I mean, I was in FM at the time that I finally got out of radio and went to television. But it went from the personality-driven, disc jockey type program to an automation system.
Yeah.
And I know I would not have liked that. As a matter of fact, I've had several people that I was in the industry with that I think they died early deaths, honest to goodness, because they just got out of the business and they had nothing to do. So I got plenty to do.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's one of the things number one, I admire you because of your resilience and your versatility. You can do a lot of different things very well, but in this business, anybody who's been in it as long as you are is either really pretty good at what they do or kind of lucky. I mean, it's, because I mean, you and I have both watched a lot of people get laid off early, or, and it's like when you're in this business and you get laid off, you suddenly feel like you've had part of your soul ripped out. It's hard. It's hard when you don't know if you kind of get addicted to it and so forth. What do you think is what do you think is the secret to your success? Just hustle. I mean, hustle, I think, would be one of them. You're pretty busy. I mean, you always keep going.
Honestly, you can't get married to any one style or any one thing. You have to have the ability to realize that time does not stop. Things keep changing. And when they put a computer on your desk, you don't go, what's this thing? Oh, no, I'm not touching that. You go, okay, how do you turn it on? And you figure out how to use it. I probably was the first, I know I was the first television reporter in Jackson to be shooting in high definition. And this was way before we could edit it. Pardon me, way before we could broadcast it, simply because public broadcasting went to high definition for Mississippi Roads, and I shot my own stories for Mississippi Roads. Yeah. And so in 2008, I had high definition equipment, and gosh, that was 5, 6, 7 years before any television station here could broadcast it. But it's because of the fact that, hey, this looks different. This is a challenge, and I don't really like learning new things, but kind of lazy, don't like to learn much of anything. I'd lot rather somebody just do it for me, but I don't mind the challenge, and realizing that, hey, this is nobody's watching black and white small screen televisions anymore. And anybody who married their career to that, they've been gone for a long, long time. Yeah. It's just like if you married yourself to, gosh, there'll never be a replacement for AM radio. I don't know what they're doing nowadays, but they're not working in AM radio probably, because times change. It's changing. Television's changing now, and you got to keep up with the times. Yeah, and I don't mind doing that.
Right. Now, I think like I said, I've had a lot of change thrown in my own career, and you're one of the people I look to. I mean, I've just admired how you've been resilient and you've been able to pop back, and you got caught up in a business decision like I got caught up in a business decision. When I got made part-time, it wasn't personal. It was somebody looking at some numbers somewhere, and they just made the decision, and it was, for lack of a better word, it sucked, but it was what it was, and I need to respond. You, of course, they let you go at WLBT, which, on a personal front, I was just like, what were they thinking? But, thankfully things worked out really well. You got a call from WJTV, and you've made that transition pretty smoothly.
Oh, listen, I'm having a ball at JTV too. I love it. The kids over there, and of course, anybody at my age, anybody under 50 is a kid. So, they think that I'm a legend. And I say, did you call me a legend or did you call me allegedly? So, but they like me, and bless their hearts, they laugh at my jokes. And no matter how many times I've told, and I preface my stories, by the way, with telling them, now listen, I've got 1,000 stories. I just can't remember who I told them to. And so even if I tell them a story that I know they're bound to have heard before, they still react to it and respect. They're very nice to me, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they are letting me do probably more than what I would really want to do. But I don't mind that either. We're just like that Christmas program. I got hired in October, first part of November of whatever year it was, 3 years ago. And the first thing that I got hit with was, well, we're going to do an hour Christmas special. And I was thinking, okay, we've got a whole year to prepare for it. She said, no, we're going to do it this year. And so I told the boss and told him, said, listen, whatever you're smoking, I want some of it to be able to get through this. But, and we've done a Christmas special since then. We've tackled a Halloween special, things like that. And I can go in and say, hey, I'd like to do this. And so far, nobody said no or rolled their eyes at me or anything like that. So it's fun to be where I am right now, doing what I am right now. Some days I think I would like to be retired, but the days that I'm at the house with nothing to do, and I'm thinking, gee, I really wished I was at work today. I can't imagine just having this open-ended, not being able to be on the air somewhere. And not because I want to be a star, it's just that's what I like to do. Exactly. I want to go.
No, I completely get that, and I completely understand it. By the way, working with you on that Christmas special, and it was, like I said, they just sent me your story. That was kind of the extent of us working together. But I mean, getting to illustrate that was so much fun. It really was.
I tell you what, it turned out great too. Matter of fact, if Opie hadn't contacted you, we're doing another Christmas special this year, so you make another story.
Yeah, no, I'll be glad to do it. I mean, it was kind of cool. Opie got him an Emmy out of it too, so I thought that was kind of neat also. So that worked out really well.
Yes, he walks past my office and shows it to me from time to time. Oh, gee, am I holding this? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he probably has lines on his face from sleeping with it, that sort of thing. I probably would do the same thing, to be honest with you on that. Yeah. And also too, one of the things I learned pretty early on was if people know you in Mississippi, they'll pay attention to you. And you have put a lot of miles on you and your car over the years between you did stories like Mississippi Road Stories for WLBT. You did it for Mississippi Stories. You're doing some like that for WJTV as well. You get out, but you also get out and you do a lot of speaking also. It seems like everywhere I've ever spoken, of course, I hope that we get to do that again as soon as the pandemic's over with. But it seemed like everywhere I ever went, you had been there like the previous year. Okay. So, that's a big part of what you do, isn't it? It's just getting out and talking to folks.
I had the theory a long time ago that people will watch who they know on television. And I pretty much anybody who gave me an invitation to come speak to the Rotary Club or Lions Club or anything like that, although that usually the only pay you got out of it was a meal, which wasn't bad some days,
Good meals.
It was a whole lot better than the meal I was going to have, going through a drive-through, trying to do a story, that and a coffee cup. But you got to meet the people, and I got so many stories while I was out on the road too. Yeah. I was speaking to the Lions Club in Macomb. And before I left there that day, went down to, it's not Osaka, where is it? It's right up from Osaka. It's the, I can't think of it. Anyway, it was a legend of a monster, a Bigfoot type deal. I'll think of where the place is in a minute. But anyway, so I got me a Bigfoot story out of it. And no, I don't believe in Bigfoot. I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but I'm not going to spend the night in a haunted house either by myself. I don't want to have it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt at midnight. But I think the reason I like Bigfoot stories, and my wife, Miz Jo, jumps on me, oh, don't do another ghost story. Those things are silly. I said, no, they may be, but they're fun.
Right.
And I like Bigfoot stories because they're all fun. I did a story with the guy in Brandon. He was coming up with a television show called Killing Bigfoot. And he said the PETA people were already on him, but Bigfoot needs to live. Bigfoot. He said, let me find one first. Right. Let me take a hot shot, then complain about it. But gosh, what were we talking about? That's the other thing I do.
Your travels and how, that's how you get your stories.
But yeah, I do like to go talk to people, and I'm with you. I want to get back to talking to people in person. I've had several invitations to do this, talk to a group of 30 people on a computer, and I've declined those. And the reason that I do that is because speaking to a group of people is kind of like putting on a play. You have to have an audience to bounce things back to you.
Right.
How you're doing. And I just can't get that kind of response, talking to a computer screen.
Man, I tell you what, well, I'll be really honest with you. That was the hardest thing when I first started doing radio was because, I can get in a room with 20 people or 500 people or 6,000 people, and you just just like you said, you feed off that energy.
Yeah.
The energy of that crowd is magic. You get in a room with a microphone and it can get pretty lonely and pretty scary pretty quickly. It took me a long time to learn how to do that on that. And you're lucky. I mean, like you said, you've been doing radio since you were, a wee lad. So
the good thing about radio back then was, I mean, we were, introducing records, and maybe trying to tell a joke or something like that, or, maybe bantering back and forth with the newsman. But so I never did a speech on the radio, except maybe sometime when the turntable wouldn't work and you had to. But anyway, you do know what I'm talking about, though.
Oh,
You've got to have that energy. I mean, the best sermon I ever delivered, a black preacher friend of mine invited me one Sunday morning. I don't know what he was thinking either. Invited me to come preach at his church in Raleigh. And he had done me a couple of favors. And I said, well, okay, if you really want me to, I'll be glad to. Got there that morning. Several other churches had dismissed and their congregations came.
No way.
And I had this little semicircle of black ministers back behind me.
Yeah.
And I got up and started to speak. And I'd get an amen back here, and it kind of scared me the first couple of times. And I'd kind of get a little energized there, and then say something else, and somebody back behind me, that's right, that's right. And say something else, yes, sir, that's right. And I got to thinking, this could be right. I don't know. But that was the best, because I had that energy back behind me, and you got these people, it's like the old tell a bulldog to sick 'em. Yeah. And so I went back and I told my pastor at my church, so you want to preach a good sermon tonight? You get 5 black ministers to sit behind you while you preach. It'll be the best thing you'll ever do, better than the choir. So
I was going to say, maybe you could get Ken South to be doing that to you while you're there. Have Ken over there going, amen.
That's right.
Well, speaking of Ken, and I mean, like I said, Ken got here about the same time I did, back in the mid 90s. And I remember him, as the weekend weather guy. And it's just been fun watching him progress in his career. You've gotten to work with a lot of characters over the years. And you mentioned Bert hiring you. I was just thinking about that. We're coming up on the 9/11 or the Katrina anniversary. And that was the last time the 10th anniversary, we went down the coast. That was the last time I saw Bert. He got sick right after that. But I mean, I got to visit with him for like an hour. It was just, I was so glad to catch up with him and on that. But talk about some of the people that you've worked with over the years. And I mean, because Jackson's just, as a newspaper market, we had, for the size newspaper, we had a lot of talent at the Clarion Ledger back when first. I mean, you just would blow you away. And for this size television market, there have been a lot of very talented, a lot of characters that have kind of either stayed or have worked their way up the food chain and gone on to great things. That was a really long question. Sorry about that.
This is I'll take part number 2 first. I don't even know if it's a 2-part, but I'll talk about.
Oh, it's about a 10-part, but yeah.
I'll get to the other. We'll do a sequel to this. I'll get to the other 8 parts. But
Sorry.
The people who've been here since I have been at Channel 12.
Yeah.
We've had people who've left here and gone to Charlotte, who have left and gone to Dallas, and that's kind of unheard of. You go from Jackson, Mississippi to Dallas. And places like that, and so it is a stepping stone to a major market. Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to call up names, and that's kind of tough to do sometimes. Do you ever have that problem?
Yes.
Remembering someone's name, and it's somebody and it's somebody you may work with, and you go. This morning, I was trying to remember Melanie Christopher's last name, and thinking,
wow.
Not that.
Yeah.
So and I work with her every day. And radio was the same way. When I was in radio, we had people I was working WRBC radio. We had people who left there. My best friend in radio left there and went to Boston and became the program director of WRKO radio in Boston.
Yeah.
He became a legend in the business. After he retired, he would go down to New York City on the weekends and work WCBS FM just for kicks.
Yeah.
There are people in this industry who would kill their mother to be able to go work for WCBS or anywhere in New York. But all that to say, Jackson has been blessed to have all kind of broadcast talent here. Some of the people I work with, well, let's see, Woody Asap's got to be the top of the chart, because I was literally 4 years old when Woody started doing weather. And then when I was 30, 36, 34, 35, whatever it was, I went to work with him, and he was still doing weather. Little did I know, he was still going to be doing weather 20 years later. They kind of hired me with the promise that when Woody retired, I could have his weather job. And they said he's 67 years old. He'll probably retire by the time he's 70.
Yeah.
Right before his 70th birthday, Dan Modisette called me into his office. He says, I've not heard anything officially from Woody yet, but get your affairs in order and get ready to take over this full-time weather job. Because I was just doing the 10 o'clock weather. Woody was, doing his stuff earlier, and I was doing the Look Around Mississippi stories. Well, 5 years later, Dan called me into his office and pretty much gave me that same talk. 75 years old, he's going to retire. I just know it. Get ready for it. 5 years later, Dan called me into his office and says, I don't have a clue what Woody's going to do. So Woody finally retired in 1984. And so after 17 years, I got my full-time weather job, worked up to 2 weeks and decided, I don't even know if I like this or not. But I was in my favorite Woody story. I was walking through the studio one day. I was limping, had a sore knee. And Woody said, hey, bud, what's wrong? I said, gosh, Woody, I don't know. I guess I better go to the doctor with it. He says, that won't do you any good. I said, I had a sore knee, went to the doctor. So the doctor tried to tell me it was old age. And Woody said, I told the doctor, he says, it can't be old age. The doctor says, well, why not? He said, he slapped his other leg, says, well, the other knee's the same age and it feels fine. So, Bert was not totally all business, but he was certainly very much into what he did and felt the importance of it. And he did some great stuff. It's too bad the thing that people remember most about Bert Case, though, was when he beat off the pit bull with a rolled up piece of copy paper out in West Jackson and just kept hitting that dog in the nose till the dog had enough of it and ran off.
I asked him about that when we were down on the coast, and I said, how did you do that? And one of the paper he had was his reporter pad.
Yeah.
And it had a little wire thing on it, and the wire thing was out. So it was cutting the dog's nose every time he hit the dog. And he said, well, that's how I survived that. I said, when I did his obituary cartoon, I had him being greeted by the dogs in Fordyce. I figured, that would be perfect on that. But, Walt, I've got like 2 or 3 cartoons that I, would put up on the wall. One of them is signed by Hank Aaron. I'm proud of that one. Yeah. Somebody gave me a copy of Bert and Fordyce, Fordyce about to hit Bert with a bat. It was like the first day of Fordyce's retirement. And both of them signed that cartoon. And I was like, you can't get that anymore. But yeah, Bert loved being Bert. I've just never seen anybody that loved being, himself anymore. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. He just loved what he did and did on that.
Yeah.
So,
those would be at the top of the list. Maggie Wade is on the air just like she is in person. She's about the sweetest person you'd ever want to run across. Yeah. But now, at the same time, I will tell you that all of them, including me, have our moments. You can only. This is a business of very high-strung people. Yeah. And I think the good managers realize that and don't try to pull our chains very much. Right. And the ones that don't realize it, they learn it real quickly. But most people's tempers that I have run across in this business, including mine, is kind of a flash fire. It goes poof, and you see the flame and the smoke, and then it's gone. Yeah, and then you're over with it. And anyway, I can't really think of anybody that I have worked with that I don't like. Yeah, and I would think they would say that about you. I mean, I think that would be a fair statement on that. Yeah, I always talked about my boss. I had David Hampton was my editor for 15 years at the Clarion Ledger, and I always called him the ego whisperer because he managed to keep all of us in line, to keep our egos in line. But I mean, like I said, the business has changed so much, so rapidly because of technology and everything that, everything's changed. I mean, I was thinking about you doing weather, in 1984 compared to what if you were doing weather today, the graphics and everything else. It's a totally different world. What advice would you give somebody coming into the business today? First of all, know a little bit about everything, because I'll be honest with you, we have a lot of people who the only thing they know about is broadcasting. Not necessarily people that we have out there now, but people that coming out of school, they went to broadcast school. Yeah, they learned broadcasting. And then they went to school in some other part of the country, and they come to Mississippi to get their starting job.
Yeah.
And then very little to nothing about the Civil War, which is still that's where about 90% of our social problems came from, and very frankly haven't been resolved yet. You need to know a little bit of, if you know a little bit of something about everything, you can get on the air, and if you know 2 sentences about it, you can expand your entire width, breadth, and height of your knowledge in those 2 sentences. And people don't know that's all you know. They think, gosh, that person's brilliant. Look, just right on top of their head. But know a little bit about everything. And don't get in this business if you don't love it.
Yeah.
If you're just doing this because it's a job, it's not a job like any other job. It's not 9 to 5. You carry it home with you. If you see in the background, this is my house. Yeah. I've got, gosh, those are tape decks over there. I bring kids out to show them antiques now because nobody knows what a tape deck is. And I don't know whether I should show these or not because they all work. Now then people who have tapes will be, can you play this back? So, I think that'd be find out a little bit about everything, be very curious about stuff, and then love what you do. Either that or to go find something you do love.
Have you ever thought about leaving Mississippi?
Just at one time when I went to Omaha.
Yeah.
I have not since then. I would come home sometimes. Somebody would rub me the wrong way, and I would come home and I would tell Miz Jo, I'm going to quit. I'm not under contract right now. I can leave anytime I want to. I'm going to quit. We're going to go. We're going to get out of here, and we're going to go. And all right. I'll give them one more chance because I really couldn't think of a place I wanted to go to. The closest big market to us is New Orleans, and I hate to go to New Orleans for fun. I'd hate to think that I'd have to work there or something, because first of all, you got to go through Baton Rouge to get there, which, you get to Baton Rouge nowadays with all the traffic. When you get to Baton Rouge, you're only 2 hours away from Baton Rouge. So it's that crowded down there. Atlanta is totally out of the question. Then you got Dallas. Now, these young kids who come through here, that's what they're doing. Some of these came from California. They're working their way back home. But this is home. Why would I want to leave home? I know it here. I know the culture here enough to get around in fairly well. I know what to say and what not to say, and when to say it and when not to say it.
Well, I think for what we do for a living, and with me with the cartoons and you telling the stories, I can't think of a better place to be.
Well, there's a lot of material here. That's
what
sure.
I mean. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And I have never run out of stories. Matter of fact, I've probably got a stack of emails around here that if I did one a day from now until the day I died, I wouldn't get around to all the stories that I could do. I
was going to ask you about that because, for me, for looking for guests, I'll think about people that I know or I talk to, or, I'll see somebody in the paper that looks or online that seems interesting or in the news. But for you, like you said, do people just send you suggestions and so forth? Or if you're out traveling, it's just kind of a combination, isn't it?
Kind of a combination. Usually a lot of times when I'm out doing a story, somebody will come up to me and say, hey, did you know about so-and-so? So while I'm doing stories, lots of times I get other story ideas.
Yeah.
Since the advent of email, though, I don't seem to, it's not been as much here lately, though. Maybe it's the COVID.
Yeah.
People aren't getting out like they used to. But, there's still always a glowing grave somewhere that somebody will send me an email about. I just think, I'm not going there. The grave is glowing. What do you think? I'm an idiot? No, I probably would. I would end up doing it. But
a glowing grave, was it near Port Gibson?
We had a glowing grave in the Delta when I was a kid.
Really?
And, it's the way the street light shone on it. Okay. After they put the street lights up, but we could make it glow.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Like I said, you have contributed to my knowledge base of Mississippi. I did not know there was a monastery in North Mississippi. I now know there's one because of I knew about the Turning Angel when it got knocked over, and in Natchez, and and so you have educated me for the last 25 years. So I wanted to say thank you officially for that.
Well, you're quite welcome. Yes. People talk about the Turning Angel. People people ask me, Walt, have you ever seen the turning angel turn? And I tell them, no, usually I don't drink that much before I drive myself.
I mean, I've had some fun down in Natchez, but I've never seen it turn. So I don't know. Maybe one day I'll have enough fun that I can see that happen.
Yes. You will have arrived then, or either you will arrive at the jail right after that, one or the other.
That's a good point. That's a good point. What's probably the most bizarre story that you've covered?
I had one that I almost covered. I didn't do it, but it was while I was still at WLBT. A guy called me up. And says, Mr. Grayson, he says, I have 5 aliens out in my backyard.
Really?
And I'm thinking, well, I did the same thing. I was really, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't think he's got 5 aliens in his backyard. However, if I don't go cover it, it'll be the top story on Channel 12 tonight. So I said, okay, where are you? He said, well, I'm at Burger King on North State Street. So I went and I picked him up, and he had 5 hamburgers and 5 waters that he was going to take to these 5 aliens out in his backyard.
Very hostile.
So pulled into his house, pulled into the driveway. He got his hamburgers. I got my camera and just started rolling, had it on my shoulder, rolling all the way into the backyard. He immediately walked up and started talking to this tree. And well, here's your burger. And went over and talked to another tree. And I said, oh God, this guy is nuts. He's sitting here talking to trees. And I'm rolling tape on him like I'm going to put it on TV. But bless his eye. I did call his wife back that night and suggested maybe she'd get a little help for him or something like that. But that's the most bizarre thing that I've ever run across. The bizarre stories that ever hit the air. Of course, all ghost stories are good and bizarre to me.
Oh, yeah.
We had one up in the Delta at the Susie B. Law House on it's on Lake Washington. It's an interesting house because it's an old prefab Sears and Roebuck house that you could buy houses from Sears and Roebuck, order them right out of the catalog. They'd ship it to you prefab on a freight car. You go pick the thing up, haul it to the lot, and assemble it. You just put it all together. The walls were already put together, floors and things like that. You just bolted it together. So the house itself was interesting. My friend up there, Jones, I'll think of his first name in a minute. He has the bacon things. Mm-hmm. And I got too many Joneses for friends. I want to call him Roy, but I know it's not Roy. But he offered us me and Joe said, come up if you want to cover the Susie B. Law House. He said, I'll let y'all have the honeymoon shack. And what it is he had a lot of shacks out behind his bacon things that he used for people who wanted to come up and fish. And he let me and Joe have the one with the air conditioner in it. That was one of the honeymoon. Okay. And it went down though. And at about 2:00 in the morning, the ghost hunters were yelling for the ghosts. They were upstairs. Yeah. There's stairs right beside me. A landing out in front of me that was a T, and off on either side of the T, there was a bedroom. And the head ghost hunter was up here, and he was hollering, come out, show yourself, throw something, make a noise. I'm back behind my camera going, that's okay, it's okay, you don't have to. And about that time, a door slammed in one of those bedrooms. And there was nobody in there. And I mean, it wasn't just a little, it was like a wham slam.
Yeah.
That's where I found out the difference between me and professional ghost hunters. They went in there. I would have been down those stairs and gone, but I couldn't chicken out now. So I went in there, and the bathroom door was kind of swinging back and forth on its hinges. And so I asked him, I said, now, is this the door that slammed? And he said, yeah. And it was, they were yelling at the ghost. I yelled at the ghost. Okay, if you want to be on television, do something spectacular with this door. That thing swung open, held for a couple of minutes, and then wham. And I told him, okay, I got all my footage. I'll see y'all later. So anyway, that was pretty, I'm sure it was the wind. That's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
It was the wind.
It was the wind, definitely. Well, is there anything that I forgot? I mean, number one, and I was going to give you a quick brag real quick. And of course, I know you're a dad and a grandfather. And are you a great grandfather at this point?
Great grandfather, yes.
Wow, that's great. So how old are your great grandchildren?
Great. Let me go back and add up. Now, a lot of these are steps. And
Yeah.
so I don't necessarily know their ages. I think the oldest one now is a junior in high school, which is now, I'll confess my age. I'm 72 years old. I've got friends that I went to high school with that are just now having their first grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
And to have a great grandson who's a junior in high school means that these kids, they grew up with me. I mean, they were, the grandchildren were like as young as what you think your children would be. And they're all fun, and they all have different personalities. And lots of times you're glad that they all can't come at once. What I really like about the step grandson, he's a big record fan, music fan.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
And every time he comes, he has a different taste in music. And he's cleaned me out of hard rock records. He's cleaned me out of AC/DC, which I didn't mind. And you can have all that. So last time he showed up, now he's into operas. And I let him have, and I don't particularly care for opera. I like instrumentals. I don't like, if they would do them in English so I could at least understand them, that one might be better.
Right.
And so I said, well, I got plenty of opera records over here. I got plenty of everything. Like, that's another thing that I collect is I don't know that I don't know that I collect records. They just sort of follow me home.
Right.
And Joe told me one time, so you bring home one more record, I'm leaving you. And I told her, well, sweetie, I'm sure going to miss you. And quickly added, I'm kidding. So, but anyway, every time he comes, he takes another stack of records home. And Joe's very thankful for that. But it's just fun being around these kids because they're so smart. I was never that smart. I'm not that smart now. I started saying I wasn't that smart at their age, but I'm not now. But and maybe that's another thing that kind of keeps you young is you have these youngsters, these children that come along all the time.
Right.
And they would go on stories with me. I had a clip on the other day of let me see which one she's the next to. No, she's the youngest granddaughter. When she was about 11 years old. And when we got through showing the clip, I turned to Melanie and said, you saw that little kid in there? And said, Melanie, now that was the nurse who gave you your COVID shot the other day. Because she's a nurse, and Melanie came in and told me, hey, your granddaughter gave me, my COVID shot. So to see them grow up, to have a lot of them on videotape, and to be able to pull them out and show them on TV. And now then to have the after story. Yeah, this kid, we were down there looking at Civil War sites, but now she's in nursing. And I told Joe, you get up to my age, especially with COVID, and the mortality issue pops up a good little bit.
Yeah.
Because you think, gosh, at this age, I don't want to get COVID because I have a 1 in 10 chance of dying from it. And I don't want to do that. And Joe and I keep telling each other, no, I don't want to leave yet. I still want to see how this is going to turn out.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave broadcasting yet. And as long as I can stay healthy, I want to stay in it because I'm having fun. I enjoy what I do. It's work. That's one thing. Woody lied to me one time, says, if you love what you do, you'll never go to work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And I told him, that's the only time I ever cussed at him. And so, Woody, you're a damn liar. but I love what I do, but this stuff is work. But it needs to be, or you're not doing it right. But the people that I work with keep me young, and they keep me on my toes because they keep inventing new computer things that come in. Okay, you got to learn how to do this, and you got to do it over and over and over and over. Anyway, all that. So I've talked to.
One of the great moments, we were doing a thing for a fundraiser for MPB, and I was on a little bit. You and Carrie were on together, your daughter, and that was really cool seeing you two together. And I know you're incredibly proud of her and the accomplishments she's had because she's very, very talented in her own right. And that's, like you said, that's one of the joys of being a parent is getting to see your kids do really cool things.
Yeah, Carrie's done real well. She's worked for a public. She wanted to major in theater. Mm-hmm. And I did not have an aneurysm over that. I told her, let's major in whatever you want to. I told her because I've never seen anybody actually do for a living what they majored in anyway. And nobody's going to ask you what you majored in. They're going to say, do you have a college degree?
Right.
And so she went to Southern, and she did a great job in Southern. And about the closest thing that she could get to a theater job full-time with benefits in Mississippi was to work at public broadcasting. You know, officially she's the closed captioner, but she also is the puppeteer and the voice of Ed Said.
Yeah.
He worked on Between the Lions a good little bit, to the point where that she actually went to New York and was in the Macy's parade as a puppeteer one year. And she won her first Emmy for writing for a clip that she wrote for Between the Lions.
Yeah.
And it wasn't one of these things you hop over here to Atlanta for. This was I go to Los Angeles and get it. And I was still working at LBT then. And of course, everybody says, wow, your daughter got an Emmy. Well, she's just following in your footsteps. I told them, crap, I don't have an Emmy. What are you talking about? So now I'm following in her footsteps. So, but yeah, I'm proud of my kids, proud of my grandkids.
Yeah.
You know, not that they don't exasperate me every once in a while, and I'm sure that I exasperate them. I try to be a good dad, granddad, and great granddad, and make sure that I piss them off every once in a while.
Well, I'm not going to put any more work on your plate, but I really would love someday to have a book of your memoirs, just of some of the memories that you've just some of the things even we've talked about today. Because I mean, it would be a wonderful read. And if you ever need an illustrator, let me know. I know I got.
Oh, there you go. Willie Morris told me one time. This is what you do when you talk about writing books. He says, carry some note cards around in your pocket. Something comes to mind, write it down, and go throw it in a drawer until you get a stack of note cards. Then you bring them out, and then you start writing stories about those little sentences. I did that, and I lost my note cards. But I would love to do that. I've written 3 books. As I like to say, it's 3 books that fill a much needed gap. But they're about traveling around Mississippi. But the memoirs I've not done. This has been about stories around the state, and the books are out of print now anyway. So, but I'll do that. I'd love it. Greenville had a lot of writers, and so going full circle back to growing up in Greenville. This is the other thing. It was instilled in us from first grade on about how many writers came from Greenville.
Yeah,
and we had our senior English teacher. Listen. She had a spiritual experience one day. I thought she was going to speak in tongues before it was over with, talking about the writers in Greenville. And she finally says, why, you could stand on any street corner in Greenville and pitch a rock, and odds are it would hit the house of a writer. Then she kind of came to herself and realized who she was talking to. And she said, but don't really do that. So, but growing up around writing, it dawned on me one day, writers aren't born to be writers. Writers are people who have the nerve to sit down and start putting words on paper, and then, let the ink fall where it may.
Well, anything you want to add before we wrap up? Because I mean, like I said, I thank you for taking this much time with us today. This has been fun.
Oh, well, I think I bored everybody silly, but thank you for letting me talk. I like to talk. So
that's okay. No, some people can talk a lot and it's interesting. So, and you're one of those people. So this has been great. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. And thank you for having me. And I'm hoping that we can do this as I was telling somebody yesterday when I got turned down because they did not, it's for someone from MEMA. I wanted to do a story about the 20th anniversary of, the Twin Towers of 9/11. And of course, we got the hurricane going on now. They really don't have time to stop and talk about that. And I told them, it's okay, but I'm putting you on notice. I want a soundbite out of you on the 40th anniversary. So I plan to be around for a while. I hope anyway.
Yeah, I just did the math there. I can't wait to see that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, oh boy, I couldn't wait to see that either. That'd be a while.
Yeah, it'll be like with Woody. It's like, I don't know when Walt's going to retire.
I don't know what he's going to do. Yeah.
Well, I hope you're doing this for a long time. I really do, because I love seeing you on TV. So, well, Walt, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. All right. Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.